Welcome to Our Future. I'm your host, Christina Karras, and today I am here with Grant Hubner, Will, Casey, and Haley. And we are all members of We Act Now. For those of you who don't know what We Act Now is, it is a student-based environmental organization. Thank you for joining me tonight, everyone.
Thank you for having us, Christina.
Yeah, thank you
of
for
course.
having us.
Thank you.
I'm glad you guys could join. First off, can you each introduce yourself and talk about your role in the group and how you really got involved? Grant, would you like to start?
I guess I'll start. So my name is Grant Hubner. I think you can see on the bottom of the text in my box. I'm a rising senior in high school, and I actually am a co-founder of We Act Now, along with two of my good friends, Bella and Gregor. And I've always believed that climate change is a major threat to, I guess, our way of life. And I believe that we as a generation are some of the last people that have the chance to stop it and also to preserve our future. And it's at the same time when I've seen so many wonderful, wonderful, and amazing people around the planet marching and protesting for climate justice and climate changes in our environmental legislation globally to make sure that we as our planet can make sure that our futures are secured from existential climate change. But one of the things I've realized is that we have a large group of people that are protesting and amazingly showing the world what we can do and bringing information and really telling everyone climate change exists, this is a major problem, and we believe that's a major problem and we will protest for it, bringing awareness to this huge issue. But at the same time, we also need a group of people our age, I guess really our generation, we the people, if you will, that will work with governments large and small to make legislation, to design and build legislation in a democratic way that will make our cities, make our towns, and make our countries, and make our world really a more sustainable place to live. And once you have those two things, both bring public awareness, and also at the same time people working with governments large and small to foster more productive legislation, more sustainable legislation, and that really, I firmly believe, that's how we change the world.
Thank you, Grant. Will, would you like to go next?
I'd love to. Hi, I'm Will Meyer. I'm a rising junior in high school, and I'm a member of We Act Now. I originally got into it because my friend Gregor convinced me to. I mean, as stated earlier, climate change is a huge issue that we have to face as a society, and making legislation towards it is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Casey?
Yeah. So I'm kind of in the same boat as well as kind of like joining this because I was just asked to. And it's I am a very, I would say, introverted person. I approach it more from a I like just living in my own head about all this, so it's kind of intimidating seeing all this the existential threats facing our civilization, and wondering, well, what can I do about it? I'm very shy and timid, and I don't want to and so this has been, I guess, a confidence building exercise, and it's just kind of what I have my shindig. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey. Haley?
Okay. Hi, I'm Haley. I'm a rising junior, and I'm also a member of We Act Now. So the way I ended up joining is Grant ended up texting me one day, and he was like, Haley, can you help design the logo for our organization? Now, I didn't end up designing the logo, but I did end up working on some graphic design stuff with him for a while. And even after I joined the organization, because I was like, hey, I want to help these people, especially with like their more design stuff, because I kind of knew some of the people in the group, like Will and Casey and also Grant. And then I ended up joining the group, and then they kind of asked me for help with the design stuff because I'm more on the artsy side of things, and I've always had like skills with Photoshop and Illustrator especially. And so I ended up working on that stuff a little bit. And then we had to modify the logo for something, for the website, yeah. We had to modify it for the website, and there were times where Grant was texting me at like 6 a.m. and I'd be kind of half asleep.
I would say more like 4 a.m.
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't see it till 6 a.m. But I ended up working on the logo with him for a long time. It took a lot of work and a lot of time. And it was a very positive experience, very rewarding, because it shows how my art can help people, in especially in situations like this, especially with climate change, because I think it's a big problem personally, because we only have one Earth. It's not like we can just pop up and relocate whenever we want. That takes time, money, lots of scientific buildup, you know? So I just think, hey, we only have one planet. We need to make it count. We need to put all of our work into caring for it, like you care for another person, like your family, because technically the planet is part of our family. It's our home. And I just think we should take care of it.
Yeah, thank you, Haley. I personally got into it because Grant and Gregor asked me to, and Gregor actually said he noticed I was posting a lot of environmental stuff on my Instagram page, my Instagram story. I've always had a passion for it. So when they started this group, it's really inspiring to see students do their little part at their school and their community, because really every little aspect benefits our future, in my opinion. Now, what is our main goal of the group, and what have we done in the past to help benefit the environment?
Hmm. Well,
Should I start? Oh, no, Will, you
yeah,
can
yeah,
go. Sorry.
it's fine. You start.
Oh, you want me to start?
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm sorry, Christine, your question was, what's the goal of WEAC now and what have you done thus far, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So WEAC now is a student-led environmental organization that's predominantly based in Lake Bluff and Lake Forest, Illinois. And our goal, as I sort of insinuated earlier, our goal is to work with governments and government officials and scientists and just climate-minded regular people to build public awareness and to foster more sustainable climate policy and public policy and legislation. That's really what we do. One of the things in which we have done thus far is, there are many things that WEAC Now is doing. WEAC Now is still a startup, and because of the pandemic, it's sort of made things significantly more difficult for organization to grow. And because of the pandemic, when you're inside, we weren't necessarily able to do anything, and rightfully so. However, WEAC Now is currently planning a range of activities. As an example, we ourselves are having a ravine cleanup with members of WEAC Now tomorrow to really clean up one of the ravines in our area, which is full of trash and just general junk. Because one of the goals of WEAC Now is really to also promote community service, because I personally firmly believe that if you really want to make a better world, you first have to make yourself more aware, you have to educate yourself, and you also have to just become a better person, because that influences your family, and then your friends, and then your school, your city, your country, and then your world. It builds from you. And that's really the reason that WEAC Now is called WEAC Now, I think, just in a way. We, as individuals, act now to secure our futures. Not maybe, not later. We act now, and we do.
I completely agree. Would anyone like to touch on the petition that we passed around the school this
Yeah.
past year?
Sure. So, Lake Forest High School is run by the school district 115. And so what we did was we essentially wrote a petition about idling. So we said we don't want school buses or cars or anything idling in front of the school. And we passed that around, and we were planning to actually bring that to the school board. And then in their March, no, I think it was their April meeting. It's hard to keep track at this point. It's been so long. And the pandemic intervened and shut that down. In the meantime, with virtual meetings, we have attended, I believe it was a green-minded town hall that the city of Lake Forest was hosting, and just giving a bit of student input there, and generally just hoping to act. I think that a lot of the environmental movements is handled nationally by organizations such as the Sierra Club, and they have local groups in Illinois and so on. But I personally see We Act Now as something that's working to ensure that the youth of this area have a voice in how their communities are responding to climate change. And I think that's pretty much what we've all been saying. So we'll just beat the horse one more time.
Yeah. we've also touched on, Grant brought this up, the education factor that we are trying to drive through our Instagram, Twitter, and our up and coming website. Would anyone like to touch on the website a little bit and describe our goal for having that website and making our organization more professionally based?
I guess I'll go. So I think one of the major things that an organization really needs is to have a way to tell people, hey, this is who we are, this is what we believe in, and this is what we want to do. Come join us. And to really do that, you need to have a professionally designed, and really it's students that are designing this, but it needs to be designed well, which is really what I'm saying, website that easily informs people about who we are. So as an example, who is We Act Now? Well, we're student-led environmental movement, blah, blah, blah. At the same time with the website, what we want to do is we want to say who we are, who our members are, and what we believe in, then in an easy to access way, a way to contact us, because if we really want to change our area, and I guess change people in the world, we need to be transparent, and we need to be representative, and we need to be down to earth and easily contactable. And beyond that, we need to really have on our website, we say, here's what we're doing, here are our activities, you can RSVP, here's information, here's what's going to happen. Come join us. And if you want to contact us because you need more information, if you want to join us, awesome, please contact us. And that'll be awesome because we can make the world a better place with more people.
Awesome. Thank you, Grant. This is less related to the actual organization and more related to the environment itself. How do each of you feel the United States has handled global climate change and our environment in the past couple decades and years? Haley, would you like to start?
I'm kind of unprepared for this, but I'll go for it. I think the US is doing a decent job, at least, at helping with climate change. We've started normalizing stuff such as electric cars and hybrid cars, and they're becoming far more normalized in our society, which I think is something good because gas releases carbon monoxide emissions. I'm sorry, I can't talk. And I think something like that, like the US is doing its part. I just feel like there's more that can be done and be done in a smarter way. Like, I don't think that we can power a whole country on just wind turbines and solar panels alone. I think there's going to need to be some sort of super efficient way to help. And I feel like that science will eventually find a way to do it. It's just a matter of when. And when that happens, I think that our emissions as the United States will drop drastically. And then I can say the US has done a lot to help, but we're not quite there yet.
Thank you. Will, would you like to state your opinion on how the U.S. has handled global climate change?
It's interesting because while in comparison to some countries like the Russian Federation, we have actually created less greenhouse emissions, but at the same time, the United States per capita has a higher CO2 emission per capita. Sorry, I don't know if I repeated myself, which is kind of, it's interesting. It's interesting on how that goes. I don't know. Also, if we look at some data on the extrapolation of what will happen, it seems as though our improvement will probably be pretty stagnant unless we actively make an effort to, which I think is interesting. I mean, there's an awful lot of nihilism associated with it where people don't really care. They're like, I'll be apathetic to it. Doesn't matter to me. But I think we all need to worry because not only could it be a problem in our lifetime, it's a problem for our children and our children's children and the earth as a whole. Yeah, I don't know.
Thank you. Casey?
Yeah. So I generally would say that the United States was initially founded on the principle of, human beings are equals, like the general bedrock of the liberal idea that was born, I guess, in Europe during the Enlightenment and has spread around the world to raise our standard of living and basically make the world a healthier, happier, more peaceful place than it has ever been. But it's also had the side effect of, industrialization. We are, still not exactly truly happy. And of course, there's the fact that our planet is warming and countless species are pushed to extinction. Now, I would say that my stance on climate change comes from a more philosophical attitude. I'd say that, well, personally, I can't find a fundamental moral meaning to human life, or any life for that matter, unless we decide that all life, all living things inherently have value in the infinite dark void of space. Anything that lives or grows or does whatever is inherently precious and inherently equal to every other living thing that lives or grows or plays in the playground or squats in the mud or does whatever. And I would say that it would be a moral imperative just for us to ensure that we are giving ourselves, meaning to our lives. And I would say that, all living things are equal is very similar to all people are equal, the founding principle of the United States, which that would be. So climate change is a moral imperative and an imperative for the United States, our own political philosophy that we're founded on. And with that in mind, I'd say we're definitely not doing nearly enough. Our emissions are declining, yes, but we still have vast swaths of land, especially suburbia, where we all happen to live, that have been turned away from natural use, the use of various living beings that used to be here, and humans have essentially invaded and propped themselves up as the lords of this domain.
Furthermore,
Oh.
sorry. Furthermore, I'd like to correct a statistic I gave earlier. In fact, the United States is a lot worse. That was from major industry. The total gas emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, are the highest in China with 24.3% in 2017, with the United States being right behind at 13.4%. Unfortunately,
You might have to fact check me on this. That was in 2017. I believe now the U.S. is number 3, and India has possibly passed us up, but I could be wrong.
I don't know.
I can check that right now.
I believe you're correct, Christina. I think India.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Although, I mean,
Grant, would you like?
Sorry.
Oh, continue, Casey.
Yeah. So just in that, continuing with that earlier train of thought, I would say that there's not really much we can do to truly repair what we've destroyed in the natural biodiversity and beauty of this continent that we've basically bulldozed and mined and all logged our way across, aside from pretty much all of us just leaving and setting aside hundreds of years to restore the world. But I think in the meantime, it's a good and noble goal to try and reduce emissions so that at least there is some hope of preserving normalcy, whatever that may mean in a changing planet.
Thank you, Casey. Grant, would you like to state your take on it?
Christina, can you please re-ask the question?
Yeah, of course. The basis of it was, how do you feel the United States has handled global climate change and the change within our environment, whether it's in the past couple years or in the past couple decades?
Okay. So I think one of the most important things, which I really want to get off the bat right now, is that climate change is nothing new. For even in prehistory, as long as humanity has existed, even back to the time of nomadic tribes, climate change has been a thing. We can see this in our agricultural records. And to an extent, this is why tribes were nomadic. Not only would they follow their prey, because we are omnivores, but they would have to leave certain areas because they would deplete the animal populations and the plant populations, really the biodiversity of the area in which they lived in. Then they would move on and they would come back. So climate change is, I really have to say, it's nothing new. It is a fact of human nature. It really is.
Also just add that actually we think that it was climate change that caused us to initially crawl down from the trees back 6 million years ago when the jungles dried up and became savannas. So in a way, we have climate change to thank for us being here right now. Just going off.
And really, I understand I'm probably going to start rambling, and I'll try to keep that to a minimum. But one of the things that you really have to understand is many people who are watching this might not understand what climate change is. And so really the thing is Earth's biosphere, and the biosphere is really every living thing that is on Earth, including its atmosphere, changes over time. And this could be rain patterns changing. So an era of time would have more rain in a certain area and less rain in a certain area. Or global temperatures, the mean global temperature can change, it can rise and fall. We have ice ages, and we have warmer areas such as now. The issue is that, and there is almost complete concurrence in the scientific community, that humanity is responsible for the climate change that we have today. And really, Earth's temperature, as I said, Earth's temperature has changed vastly throughout human history. In fact, at some periods it's been higher. The issue is the rate of that change. It is unprecedented. If you look at the graphs, Earth's mean global temperature is increasing at an astronomical rate. The same thing, it directly coincides with emissions of carbon dioxide, and these emissions are directly caused by human industry. Climate change is anthropogenic, meaning that it's caused by people. And to a great extent, this is caused by the United States. The United States is one of the first countries which industrialized, and since roughly the early 1900s, it's had the world's largest economy, and it still does today. And of course, the United States at the same time recently and in the past has done many things to combat climate change, starting with many of the ecological movements starting, I believe, in the 1970s. We have the EPA was founded by, I believe, President Richard Nixon. Though, please correct me if I'm wrong. At the same time, you have Clean Water Acts, Clean Air Acts, when the population start to realize that the climate is changing, the animals are dying, and we have to figure out why, and we have to put a stop to it because it is destroying our livelihoods. And since then, the United States has done many different things to help combat the climate change, as well to make its infrastructure and the ways of life of its citizens more sustainable. However, this is not enough. We can see in history, and I will be apolitical, but it is statistical. You can see in the reactions to climate change of both parties since really the 1980s. Generally, Democrats, especially now, believe that climate change not only exists, but is caused by people, and that we must have radical change to combat it. Generally, the Republican Party in the United States does not either believe, A, that climate change exists, or B, that's caused by people. But of course, at the same time, we have two parties in this country, and many people of different parties have vastly different beliefs. But this is the general thing. If you look on TV, those are the general stances. And we can see this in the actions of both administrations. As an example, under the Obama-Biden administration, in 2009, they had millions of dollars were put into future green technologies, investment into a more carbon neutral infrastructure in this country. Under the Trump administration, many of those regulations have been rolled back, and we left the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, Joe Biden, who is now running for president as the Democratic nominee, has a few days ago unleashed his Build Back Better plan, which is an infrastructure plan in which $2 trillion, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, $2 trillion over the course of 4 years will be invested as fast as possible to make our infrastructure more climate neutral, with the goal of making our infrastructure totally 100% carbon neutral by 2035. And so the United States is doing a lot of work to make sure that our planet that climate change will be stopped as much as we can. But at the same time, it is not enough. And our country is deeply, deeply divided on this issue. And if we really want to save the planet, we have to educate the people on this issue, not just listen to scientists or what many people truly believe are elitists. That is not my opinion, but many people believe that is true. We need people like us, your neighbors, your friends, your family, to talk in a non-combative way, being like, look, we have to do these things. We have to make our infrastructure and our nation more green, because if we don't, we will have catastrophic climate change. This is the scientific truth. And that really is what we need to do, and that is what We Act Now is trying to do.
Thank you, Grant. I agree with the majority of what you said. However, I want to address your point stating that the Republican Party tends to not generally care about the environment. And I would like to, that wasn't your direct quote, but that was implied, correct?
No,
Um,
Richard Nixon, as I said, was the person who created the EPA. But generally, and this is obviously there are an incredible amount of exceptions. The mainstream Republican
that's what I'm
Party.
saying. That,
Okay, sorry.
that's exactly what I said. But I would like to argue that it's more of a generational aspect. A majority of us young people who do tend to be with the Democratic Party and left-leaning, I personally am right-leaning and do align with some of the Republican ideologies. I do believe it's really more of it's based on the fact that us as students, it's our future that we're looking at. It's our kids' future. And a lot of the older generations, where yes, they do care about us. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that's not necessarily their main focus. But that would be my only counter argument to what you just said. Would you possibly agree to a certain extent with that?
I actually wouldn't even say that's a counter argument because I perfectly agree with that. You're like 100% correct in that statement. There's just a priority difference because when you look at the major voter demographic.
You also have to look at the Democratic Party. The reason they do lean on those environmental issues, and sometimes it does come down to votes, is because a majority of the Democratic Party is a lot of the younger people, the people
That's what
that.
I was going to say. Yes.
Yeah, correct. Awesome. So that's just something I wanted to emphasize on. However, in my opinion, if we do look at what the United States has done, they've had a lot of ups and downs, and I agree with everyone entirely that we are not where we need to be. However, I fully believe that climate change has no borders, and it really does not. And countries such as China and India, and we brought up the statistic before, who are currently going through their industrial age, are having higher carbon emissions because they are not focused on the environment. They're more focused on getting to the technological age, feeding their people, getting their people out of poverty, as they should. The United States has already done that. However, it should be the job of us and other countries that have already experienced that to help these other countries, in my opinion, and guide them in a way to do it where we can protect our environment because it affects all of us. That is my personal take on it. And I truly believe the United States, whether it's on a legislation aspect, needs to do more. What we're doing, even the little bits that we've done already, make a big impact and will every little thing. You're taught this since a young age. Just recycle that bottle, because if 1,000 people were to not recycle, that's 1,000 bottles. That sort of ideology and aspect is kind of what I'm getting at. My last question is, we are all student activists. We all love to promote change. If you had any advice for other students that want to be an activist, want to help change the world, what advice would you give them? Grant, would you like to start?
Sure. So, you want to change the world. All right. I do too. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And honestly, really putting yourself out there is one of the first things you really have to do. And many people just aren't ready to do that. And that's perfectly fine. The first thing I want to say is there are many people that think that everyone should be an activist. And if you aren't an activist, then that's somehow wrong or that's somehow bad. To which I need to say, it's okay. One of the things in which you really need to say is that everyone is at a different point in their life. And even saying that doesn't make much sense. Everyone is an individual. You can be you. If you want to change the world, awesome, please go for it. But you don't have to. Everyone is themselves. Everyone makes the world a better place in their own way. But to your point, one of the things, if you really want to change the world, is that you have to put yourself out there. And I understand that this is a very difficult thing for some people, and that's okay. But putting yourself out there, it could be raising your hand in class, asking questions, making comments, even if it's, for example, my AP environmental science class from last year, raising my hand and being like, how would this work? Or is this a fact? Or talking about, I guess, the nitrogen cycle or things like that. Because through these indirect ways, these small ways, you're teaching people and you're helping people that not only raise your hand, be an individual, ask these questions and be interested in what you do, but you're also learning things that help you to do these things more often. And from there, we have this thing called the internet, and we have these smartphones in our pocket with vastly more computational power than the Apollo program, the Apollo 11, which went to the moon. Use it. We have the totality of human knowledge at our fingertips. This is the easiest time to change the world in human history. If you want to change the world, the first thing I want to say is learn the facts and know how to learn the facts. Look up which sites and websites are reputable. There are ways to do that online. to make sure what you're being told is true. Fact check, and just do what you're interested in, because changing the world is in so many different ways. It can be founding a business or a bakery, doing community service, founding an environmental movement called We Act Now. And from there, take to social media and say what you believe in and try to organize people personally on a personal level. Try to organize people who are like-minded with you and do things. Because it's one thing to just think, oh, this system is bad, or something should be changed, or this is a bit odd, why don't we do it this way? But the condition of the human nature is not just totally reliant upon thinking. It is human nature to do, to act now. And that's really one of the things which I want to say. To reiterate, because I know I'm rambling. First thing is, it's okay if you don't want to change the world, or if you aren't an activist. Be you. That's amazing. That's amazing. But if you do, educate yourself. Find like-minded people, and do what you believe in. That's how you change the world.
I'd like to
Yeah,
actually.
does anyone have any? You have something to
I
add?
have like
Awesome.
5 things to say. That was amazing. Good job. I have 5 things to say. Actually, not even 5. Probably less. First of all, it's inadvertent. Anything you do will lead to something happening. You change the world no matter what you do. So in a sense, no matter what you can do, because of causality, any action that you take will inherently cause good or bad. Anything you do. But one thing that I would like to mention is that, especially in the case with activism and creating positive change, it really comes from within. You need to have a drive and a willingness to make positive change. And furthermore, if you want to take that route and create positive difference in the world, I think a lot of it is to learn and to obtain knowledge that you need to make a better solution or come to a conclusion or, I mean, find a better way. That's essentially it.
Great. Does anyone else have anything to add or any final words?
I'd like to add something actually. Wait, what? I'm sorry, I can't hear. Wait, can you repeat the question?
Oh yeah, of course. I stated obviously we're all student activists, and what advice would you give to other students that want to really get involved but haven't yet?
Well, I mean, it's fine to not want to be involved, as Grant said, because it's very mentally draining sometimes, emotionally draining. I know sometimes it can be for me, just because the way my brain works. If I focus way too much on something, I get tired out quickly. So the way I work in like more short, concentrated bursts, but that's besides the point. I think that if you feel like you want to change the world and it's something you want to pursue, and the first thing you have to do, if not the first thing you do, one of the first things you have to do is you have to learn how to stop caring about what other people think, because you are your own person. It's okay to listen to other people's opinions, but you shouldn't let other people's opinions dictate your own. And I think once you learn to become more confident in yourself and have confidence in your own opinions and not be dictated by other people's opinions, that's when you get to start making change in the world, because you're assertive of yourself and you're assertive about communicating your viewpoints and having them be heard. And I think you should totally listen to other people's opinions, but you shouldn't, like I said, you shouldn't be controlled by them. And I think once you get the confidence in yourself and your opinions, then starting changing the world will come, like when Grant said, when you meet like-minded people that have a similar mindset, you all come together and you have this confidence around you and you push yourself to make that change.
Thank you, Haley.
Right.
Casey, would you like to finish us off?
Yeah. So I would just agree with pretty much everything that's been said. And then I would say that if you really want to change the world instead of the zeitgeist, I believe is the correct word here, of the moments and the current climate of activism, I would say that it's incredibly important to persuade others, write out your opinions, structure them in logical arguments that aren't incendiary. Well, they can be a bit incendiary, polemics are fun, but just make sure that your opinion is not only transmitted through social media or only through like the interwebs or whatever, just write and talk to other people. I think a lot of the problem with the current partisan divide in the United States is that politicians don't really go out to just people's houses in random cornfields in Kansas or whatever anymore. That's something that's died out with the modern hyper emphasis on security. But activists are, well, they're less large targets, I guess, than presidential candidates. You have the ability to go to and speak to people. Just if you really want to change the world, drive across the country, visit other people visit people elsewhere in the world, talk to them about what's important to you, talk to them about your beliefs, persuade them, have a dialogue. Yeah, I feel bad for saying that. And really try and bring humanity towards a more common, cohesive set of beliefs that are important to you. Because when we're just, getting in our own groups, that's great and all, but it's still just a bunch of individuals pulling on our collective energy in various different directions. That doesn't really change the world. That changes where the world is at any one given point in time before it swings back due to elasticity. Um, we need, if you want to really move something, it's all about persuasion and people and treating them not as like, stepping stones on your road to a great Wikipedia article, but as people in the world who have a voice in what goes on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Casey. And thank you all for joining me today. It's greatly appreciated, and keep acting now.